So, back in the day, I used to be able to solve a Rubik's Cube, but as a future memory loss patient, I wasn't really able to remember all those algorithms for long. So at this point, I'm just as knowledgeable about how to solve a Rubik's Cube as a person who only sees black and white, so might as well try and build a solver. So I'm making this in Python because that's the language I'm the most familiar with, and if I chose something like C++, I'd still be writing the boilerplate code. So my idea with this project is to do the following. First of all, we scan and process each side of the cube, detect what colors they have, etc. Then we try and solve the cube, and finally we'll provide a solution and a 3D representation. Now, because of a Rubik's Cube and the way it is, we really need to make sure that we align things correctly, so we do this super ingenious method of just telling the user to follow a couple rules. Basically, when you're scanning white or yellow, you have to make sure that the red centerpiece is facing up, and when you're scanning any other color, you should make sure that white is facing up. So I'm going to be using a block representation method. Basically, you don't really treat the cube as individual squares, but you treat it as 27 separate blocks. Each block has an X color, a Y color, and a Z color, depending on which side they're facing. And these blocks also have an X, Y, and Z position in three-dimensional space. So why is it really important that we represent the cube like this? Well, because of math. We need to do a lot of rotations, and basically when you rotate something in three-dimensional space, you need to multiply its coordinates by a special thing called a rotation matrix, and it's just a lot easier to code that way. Now, once we have these cubes and their attributes, we kind of just put this into a solving module, and it does all the hardcore calculations for us. We can just display the moves that the user needs to make, and the cool part is, the maximum moves you'll ever need to do is just 20. But anyways, now we need to render this in three-dimensional space. Now, you know how each cubie has an XYZ position? Well, we just plot each of them onto the graph, and bang, that's the representation fully complete. We need to put the solution on top, and we're almost finished. Now, every cube is slightly different, and color mathematics can be a complete pain. So I added an extra piece of code that lets you calibrate the color at the start. That way, even if your cube is completely different from mine, as long as the squares are all similar enough, it should still work. So I wanted to show a bit of a demo. Once you actually set up the repository and you've cloned it, you just go into the main directory and you type python main.py, and it should open up the webcam, or actually it'll ask you if you want to calibrate it first. So here you go. Would you like to calibrate your colors? If this is your first time running it, I'd recommend doing so. Then it'll open up the camera, and just follow what it says at the top right here, the actual title of the screen. So it'll say display the white center square, so that's this. Then the red, which is here. Blue. Orange. Green. And this is just to make the cube solver more accurate. Yellow. Once you do this once, it'll save onto your computer and you won't actually need to recalibrate it again. So that's just a little instruction screen you could follow if you'd like, but I'll give you the gist anyway. When you're displaying white or yellow, make sure you have the red centerpiece on top. So if I'm displaying white, we have red on top. There we go. Then I can show yellow and make sure red is on top. Then, when you're displaying anything else, just make sure white's on top. Press the space bar. And this should be your cube. You'll have your solution right over here. Let me just make sure that's what mine looks like. Yep, seems to match up so far. Yep, everything looks right. So, yep, this should just be your cube. Just follow these instructions with red pointing towards you and yellow facing up, and you'll be able to solve your cube. Now, if you're not familiar with the Rubik's Cube notation, just follow a YouTube video. I'll link one in the description, and the GitHub will also be there. Thank you for watching, and hope you enjoy this.